Long ago in the peaceful town of Bakuma, there lived a woman named Maimuna. She worked as a cashier at a small community bank in town. Even though the pay wasn't much, she took pride in her job because it helped her pay the house rent, supported her younger brother through apprenticeship school, and helped her buy medicine for her father whose bad back made every morning a fight. Maimuna wasn't the type to chase trends. Her friends often teased her, saying, "You live like an elder, always thinking too far." And she would just smile and say, "Someone has to think ahead." She mostly wore simple wrappers and modest blouses. Her hair was usually tied in a clean scarf. She wasn't broke, but she respected money so much she hardly wasted it. And her life moved quietly. Until trouble knocked with a sweet face, Salifu Danjuma entered Maimuna's life like a surprise rain on a dry day. They met at her friend's baby shower in Gembu. He wore a white kaftan that looked freshly ironed. His beard was lined so sharp it could draw maps. Before his words reached her, his cologne already did. And when he smiled, 2 deep dimples showed. He told her she had a calm soul, and that he liked quiet women because loud ones disturbed his peace. Somehow those words planted themselves in Maimuna's heart like seeds in wet soil.
He said he ran a spare parts business and just shipped parts
to a big shop in Lokoja. He spoke like a man who had plans, not just empty wishes. And because he always showed evidence, pictures, invoices, voice notes that ended with, "Yes, Oga," Maimuna had no reason to doubt him. He started coming by after work. Sometimes with roasted fish, sometimes with small gifts, he greeted her father with respect and offered to help pay her brother's exam fees without being asked. He never raised his voice, never showed pride, and slowly began talking about forever. One evening under the mango tree in front of her father's house, he said, "I don't want to waste your time. I want a partner, someone who is simple like you. Not these ones always snapping pictures for likes. You are wife material in a world full of show-off girls." And Maimuna, who had spent years carrying her family's needs, began to hope that maybe, just maybe, this man came to carry her burden too. Months later, they had their traditional wedding. Neighbors said she was blessed to find a real man in a time when many only found heartbreak. Her father even shed tears, saying, "Now I can sleep knowing you won't walk this road alone." Soon after marriage, Salifu suggested they open a joint account. He said it would make them grow faster as one family because 2 hearts should share one pocket. Maimuna was unsure at first. She liked to plan and know where her money went. But he kept repeating that trust was the bedrock of any real marriage. He reminded her how his own parents did the same. They opened a joint account and even planned to start building a small house together. Salifu kept telling Maimuna that if she didn't trust him, then why call him her husband at all? So she agreed. They went to the bank one quiet Friday afternoon. The customer service lady typed in their details, her fingers moving quickly on the keyboard, but just before she clicked submit, she paused and frowned. "Madam's details didn't save," she said, tapping the mouse again and again. Before Maimuna could speak, Salifu let out a soft laugh and waved his hand. "No problem, just put my name for now. We'll add her later. After all, it's the same thing, it's both of us." And just like that, Maimuna became a stranger to her own money. From the day they opened what he called a joint account, nothing was really joint anymore. Not the decisions, not the spending, and not even the pain. Because officially, the account only had Salifu's name, Maimuna, who balanced numbers at work so well that 3 departments trusted her with their budgets. Wasn't even listed as a signatory to the savings she made with sacrifice. Still, she tried to stay silent. Every month, as soon as her salary arrived, Salifu would remind her to send all of it into the joint account. Even though she hadn't bought new underwear in months. Even when her only pair of office shoes had cracked at the heel. Even when her father's painkillers finished and the pharmacist softly asked, "Madam, won't you refill this week?" At first it seemed fair. Salifu used some money for rent, bought food, and supported what he called his business. But slowly, the fridge stayed empty. The generator stopped working and fixing it was not urgent. Salifu began leaving home. Early and coming back late, the smell of beer following him through the door. The car keys he used to drop anywhere in the living room were now always in his pocket. and the ATM card for the joint account, which used to lie openly on the table, disappeared into his wallet. Maimuna, who once looked neat and graceful, now went to work with untidy hair. She couldn't afford the salon anymore because each time she hinted at keeping some of her salary, Salifu would sigh and say, "Is it not our money? Why do you care about these small material things? I love you like this, you don't need fancy hair." Her clothes started to fade. She stopped buying body lotion. Her nails broke and stayed that way. One day she walked into the office and her boss, looking concerned, asked if everything was all right at home. Maimuna forced a smile and lied. Because how could she explain that an accountant was now completely broke inside her own marriage? That every time she kept just a little for lunch, Salifu accused her of hiding secrets? That she once had to borrow transport fare from her junior colleague because Salifu had emptied the account, saying, "Business is dry this month." She even started walking part of the way to work, telling neighbors it was for exercise. The same man who once called her his peace of mind now only asked, "What did you buy with our money?" Still, she held on, telling herself maybe he was only stressed, and that good wives were supposed to be patient, weren't they? But as time passed, nothing got better. The distance between them stretched like an old rubber band about to snap. Salifu's excuses grew colder. "Business is slow. Someone borrowed my money and hasn't paid. Don't worry, I'm handling it." But Maimuna couldn't see anything actually being handled. Instead, she saw unpaid bills piling up. The electricity was cut off. The water woman came knocking for money. The landlord's son began sending warning messages. Yet every month, her salary still marched straight into that account. Like a child sent off to boarding school and never seen again. Then heartbreak arrived on an ordinary morning while cleaning the bedroom. Maimuna dropped her old makeup pouch and it rolled under the bed. As she bent down to pick it, she found a long folded bank slip. Curious, she opened it and her heart sank. It was a withdrawal slip. 350,000 taken out 2 weeks ago from the joint account. Maimuna stood frozen, staring at the paper. She hadn't even been able to buy new sanitary pads recently. Instead, she had been cutting and washing old cloth. She started folding scraps of old cloth and wrappers into makeshift pads, telling herself that's what patient wives do. That night, when Salifu stepped out for one of his endless business meetings, Maimuna finally opened his wallet with shaking hands. Inside were more slips, withdrawals of 200,000, 120,000. Even a 95,000 bill from Skylight Lounge in Coley. A club. She sank to the floor, pressing her hand to her chest. So this man who kept saying, "I'm saving for our future," was really out there spending her sweat on lounge bills. She didn't confront him that night. Instead, she cooked his food, served it gently, and forced a smile as if nothing was wrong. But while he slept, she took his hand and used his fingerprint to unlock the banking app. What she saw nearly made her faint. Only 14,047 left. And what hurt most wasn't even the empty account. It was that same week. Her father's back pain had worsened, and she couldn't afford to take him to the clinic. The next morning, standing by the door while he fixed his wristwatch, she finally spoke. "Salifu, I checked the account."
He shot her a sharp look. "Why?" She took a breath.
"There's just 14,000 left. Over 700,000 left in 2 weeks." "I need to understand what happened," he frowned. "I told you I'm using the money for investment." "What kind of investment?" she asked softly. "Please, let me know. This is everything I earn. I haven't even bought myself anything in months." His face hardened. "I'm your husband, not a thief. I'm planning something big for us." "Then tell me," she pleaded. "Show me. At least let me be part of it." He picked up his bag and walked to the door. "You don't trust me. That's your problem." And he left without a single apology. She stood there, feeling her chest tighten. As numbers ran through her head, 50,000 she couldn't pay for the household food bill last month. 8,000 her cousin's school fee balance. 5,000 she had promised to buy for her father's medicine. All gone into a joint account that now held nothing but an empty promise. The next day, she didn't dress for work. She just sat on the bed, wrapped in her old towel, staring at her reflection. The woman in the mirror had no answers. She saw someone who used to be confident, strong, careful with money, now turned into a woman watching her life fall apart while the man who called her my piece spent her kindness like spare change. Still, she stayed. What would people say? She had already posted wedding photos, worn matching clothes, smiled at family gatherings. Leaving now felt like failure. So she learned to stop asking about the account. She swallowed her pain silently like bitter medicine. But she kept watching him come home later, smelling of alcohol. Watching the distance between them widen until his presence felt like a guest, not a husband. One Sunday, while folding clothes, she found another receipt stuffed into his shirt pocket. 250,000, transferred to Ibrahim Cars and Parts. She didn't know any Ibrahim. And there was no new car, no new part at home. They had barely even bought the yam and onions that week. She snapped a photo of the slip with her phone and put it back. That evening when she gently asked, "How's business?" Salifu sighed. Very slow. "I might travel to Seoul to advertise." Her heart tightened. But she stayed quiet because asking turned her into the enemy. He would say, "You've started again. You think I'm wasting our money? You are my wife, not my auditor." And that was the truth. She had become his silent investor. Only there was no contract. In the mornings, combing her hair became hard. It was dry and tangled. She had stopped visiting the hair salon, stopped fixing her nails. Her body cream had finished, so she mixed leftover Vaseline with water just to hide the dryness. She rotated the same 2 faded office trousers, praying. No one noticed. One evening, coming home from work, she saw a strange woman's wig hanging behind the bathroom door. Her heart dropped. "Salifu," she called, finding him on the bed scrolling through his phone. "Yes," he said lazily. "Who owns this wig?" He barely looked up. "My cousin's. She came earlier to drop something." "What cousin?" He stood, walked past her. "Don't start. You're always suspicious. That's why I don't tell you anything anymore." That night, she searched his bag and found another phonophone she had never seen before. It was locked. But that was enough. In that moment, Maimuna realized she was married, but she wasn't in a marriage. The next morning, she dressed silently for work in her black dress with a small tear under the arm. As she walked past him at the door, he asked coldly, "You didn't make tea?" She turned to face him. "No, I didn't, and I won't. I'm tired," he scoffed. "Tired of what?" "Sitting in an office all day?" She didn't answer. Because if she spoke, she would pour out every night she cried, every bill unpaid, every borrowed fare, every silent ache from watching herself fade. So she walked past him and thought, one day, you'll see the balance of what you've done, and it won't be in money. From that month, Maimuna stopped sending her salary. Not because she wanted revenge, but because there was nothing left to give. Yet she still cooked, cleaned, and kept the home running like a machine on autopilot, even when he shouted at her for forgetting to buy toothpaste. Even when he came home reeking of another woman's perfume, she held herself together like a cracked cup, pretending not to spill. Until that morning, everything finally shattered. She was outside, washing her old slippers with detergent, when she heard a knock on the gate. She opened it to see the landlord's eldest son, holding a brown envelope and wearing a hard frown. "Good morning,"
He said. "Good morning," she replied softly. He handed her the envelope. "Give this to your husband."
She held it, heart racing. "What is it?" "Eviction notice. We've waited too long, 3 months without rent or explanation." Her heart dropped into her stomach. She nodded quietly, thanked the landlord's son, and shut the gate behind him. Maimuna stood there for a moment, unsure whether to run outside and scream or just fall on the floor and cry. She walked back in and saw Salifu still lying on the bed, snoring loudly. His phone was buzzing next to him, probably another woman calling. Without a word, she dropped the eviction envelope beside him and went to boil water for oats. About 20 minutes later, Salifu came into the kitchen, holding the envelope in his hand. "What's this?" he asked. She didn't answer at first. Instead, she stirred the oats slowly, letting the silence stretch long enough to make him shift uncomfortably. Finally, without looking at him, she said, "It's an eviction notice."
He let out a short laugh, as if she had made a silly joke.
"Eviction? For where?" "For here," she replied calmly. "This house, this kitchen, this bed you sleep on." He blinked, confused. "But I paid the rent." "When?" she asked, her voice still soft. "Last month," he mumbled. "No problem," she said, turning to look at him directly. "Then maybe the landlord forgot. But the letter says you haven't paid for 3 months." Salifu went quiet, his mouth half open. Maymuna's voice finally shook. "Salifu, you used over 1 million naira in just 3 weeks from our account, but you couldn't pay 180,000 for rent?"
He shrugged weakly. "I was planning to."
"No," she said sharply, dropping her spoon. "Don't lie to me." Again, she raised her voice, years of swallowed pain spilling out. "I saw the receipts. I saw the transfers. I know about the hotel in Banjul. I know you've been withdrawing cash and living another life. I know you emptied the joint account. Don't insult me anymore with small lies." He stared at her, stunned, as if she had slapped him across the face. Then he hissed. "So you've been spying on me? You think you're clever?" She shook her head slowly. "I'm not clever, Salifu. I'm just not blind anymore." Without another word, he turned and walked back into the bedroom, pulled out a small bag and started packing his clothes. The next morning, still searching for answers, or at least proof that she hadn't been completely fooled, Maymuna went to his shop in Londa. But when she got there, she found a thick padlock hanging on the door, covered in dust. A tailor from the next shop looked at her kindly. "Madam, he hasn't opened this shop in 2 months." She swallowed hard. "Do you know where he went?" The tailor shook his head. "I heard he traveled to Senegal, but he didn't tell anyone." Maymuna thanked him and turned to leave, her legs heavy like wet sand. She managed to walk back to the compound. But when she reached the backyard near the water tap, her strength finally collapsed. She sank onto a stone, buried her face in her palms, and hot, heavy tears poured out, the kind of crying that feels like it comes from your bones. Tears that had waited too long for permission to flow. That night, Maymuna didn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring at the empty sky, wondering how a woman could love a man with her whole heart and still end up with nothing. She had trusted him completely, given him everything she had, believing that was what love meant. Believing that if she sacrificed more, he would see her worth. But instead, all that remained was silence, shame, and a hollow account. She had truly believed that if she gave him everything, he would stay forever. Now all she had left was debt, silence, and shame. The next day, Maymuna packed her bags and moved back into her mother's small house, the same house she had left proudly as a married woman. That night she lay on her old thin mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, crying without a sound so her mother wouldn't hear. Suddenly, her phone lit up with a call. It was Fatu, her old schoolmate who is now a financial coach and popular content creator. They hadn't spoken in more than a year. "Maymuna, are you okay?" "I just saw something," Fatu asked, her voice tight. "What did you see?" Maymuna whispered. A second later, Fatu sent a screenshot. It was a Facebook post. Salifu wearing a white traditional outfit, smiling beside a light-skinned woman in high heels. They were cutting a cake together. The caption read, "Congratulations to my darling cousin Aminata and her sweetheart Salifu. Wishing you both joy in your journey together." Maymuna's whole body froze. Her hands trembled so badly the phone nearly slipped. Aminata, the same woman who worked at the bank in Bakau. The one who had smiled and told her gently, "Madam's details didn't save. Maybe just do it later since you both trust each other." Now everything made sense. That server didn't just hang. It had been blocked, intentionally. They had planned it together. The betrayal wasn't just about love. It was about trust, money, dignity, everything. At first, she thought she would faint, but instead, her tears dried. She sat up on the mattress and opened the folder in her phone where she kept every bank receipt, transfer alert, and message. She started searching. Carefully, slowly, she traced back each payment. She gathered phone numbers, checked names on receipts, and even called one mechanic whose name had appeared on an invoice, and then she found it. A second account under Salifu's business name. The rent money, food money, her entire salary even. The money meant for her mother's medicine, all had been quietly moved there. All without her permission, without her knowing, without her name anywhere. She forwarded everything to Fatou. When Fatou saw the documents, she went quiet for a moment, then said, "This man is not just a liar, he is a real thief." Fatou didn't waste time. Using her contacts at the financial fraud office, she helped Maimuna file a silent complaint. Within days, an investigation quietly began. When the investigation began, the money in Salifu's secret account was suddenly frozen. He couldn't touch a single coin. Not long after, Maimuna's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "You think you are smart? I will deal with you. You can't embarrass me and go free." She stared at the message, and for the first time she smiled. Finally, she had touched the one thing he truly cared about, his pocket. A few days later, a woman who worked at a small cyber cafe sent her an anonymous voice note. "I don't know you, sister, but I've seen that man. One day he came here laughing with his friend.
He said, that woman is dull. She thinks we're building a future.
Me, I'm building a fence between us." Maimuna's heart broke all over again. Because love had made her blind and deaf to every red flag. And she realized there were many other women still trapped like she had been, or about to fall into the same trap. So she decided to do something. The very next day, Maimuna created a WhatsApp group called Account with Eyes for women who wanted to build love and life with sense, not with blind trust. Within 48 hours, 37 women joined. By the end of the week, the group had over 100 members, all with different stories, but the same headline: "He used me. He drained me, and I didn't ask questions because I loved him." Soon, word spread around the community. At first, people gossiped like they always do when a woman returns to her mother's house after a broken marriage. But then the gossip changed. "Did you hear? Maimuna is holding a women's seminar next week at the youth center. She started that Account with Eyes group, right? My cousin joined. They even helped her recover money her ex ran away with." One day, Fatou's friend, a popular radio presenter, called Maimuna and said, "Kadu, your story can help so many women. Come share it. Let them hear it from someone who lived it." At first, Maimuna hesitated. She remembered the shame, the silent tears, and the sleepless nights. But then she remembered those evenings sitting on the floor, cutting old rags into pads because she couldn't afford 800 naira for proper sanitary pads. She remembered Salifu lying with a calm face while stealing every naira she earned. So that Thursday afternoon she went. She sat in the cool air of the radio studio, took a deep breath, and spoke. As she spoke, it felt like the pain left her chest and floated into the airwaves. She said softly but firmly, "I didn't just lose money. I lost time, dignity, and self-respect. But I've started healing, and I want to help other women do the same. We are not stupid. We are not weak. We were simply people who loved too easily, who trusted too soon, without reading the terms and conditions." And on that day, Maimuna's healing truly began, and so did the healing of many women listening. Before Maimuna even finished speaking on radio, the studio phones started ringing off the hook. Women called in, their voices shaking with tears, sharing their own stories of silent suffering. Some asked softly, "Where can we find her? How do we join her group?" That very night, her WhatsApp group doubled in size. Then she opened a Facebook page, and soon after a YouTube channel where she spoke about financial abuse, signs of romantic fraud, and the quiet danger of trusting blindly. One day she told her listeners, "Before you open a joint account, ask yourself, is the joint only in words or truly in action? To love without access is to live in a cage. Ask questions, protect yourself. Build, but build wisely." People listened. People learned. Even banks started noticing. A private bank in Serakunda invited her to speak at a staff training session. An NGO asked her to host a workshop for young girls in vocational school, to teach them about money and boundaries. Meanwhile, Salifu The man who once felt untouchable was falling. Painfully, some small clients from his car import business somehow got Maymuna's contact. They began calling her, demanding answers. One man said, "Madam, your name is on the account. This man cheated me of 300,000 naira and disappeared." But by then, the fraud unit already had an open file on Salafu.
His last remaining bank access
Was restricted. And when he finally walked into the bank one day, hoping to fix the issue, he was quietly detained. Arrested and later charged with financial fraud. Not just him, Aminata too, the banker who had once smiled at Maymuna and said Madam's details didn't save. The server has an issue. They were charged together, each exposed by the same truth they thought would stay buried. Danso. The woman who was once left with only pain and debt became the woman who sparked a movement, helped other women see clearly, and finally got her justice. Thank you for watching this story. What lessons did you learn? Share in the comments. If you found this powerful, share it with your loved ones. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next story. Until I bring you another true tale, goodbye.